Hi, my name is Kevin Christopher. I am the co-founder, along with Jess Wilson, of the Saints and Poets production company. We're a Burlington area theater company that frequently deals with macabre subject matter. And I'm here in a cemetery a few days before Halloween to tell you a little bit about Night of the Living Dead, the 1968 film directed by George A. Romero and written by Romero and his partner at the time, John Russo. This is a film that for me, maybe disturbingly, has a little personal resonance. I grew up not too far from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where this film was shot, as well as all of its sequels. I spent a lot of my formative years watching something called Chiller Theater on the NBC affiliate from Pittsburgh. Chiller Theater was hosted by a man who went by the screen name of Chilly Billy. His name was actually Bill Cardille, and he appears in Night of the Living Dead as a newscaster, as himself actually. As a side note, his daughter Linda is the star of Day of the Dead, the second sequel to this film. I first saw Night of the Living Dead on Chiller Theater late one night when I shouldn't have been awake and certainly shouldn't have been watching zombie movies. And it had a huge impact on me and became one of my favorite films over the years. As another side note, its second and some say, or its first sequel, Dawn of the Dead, and some say the superior film, was filmed in Monroeville Mall in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, where I would often go shopping as a young man, which I thought was really cool at the time. This film was made by a group of men who were making industrials and commercials in the Pittsburgh area. Romero actually made some of the early Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood shorts, which is a little disturbing, but true. It is interesting to look at today in modern times because it is really the first appearance of what we now know as the zombie, the lumbering undead who are in search of human flesh. Before it was sort of a black magic witch doctor kind of thing, and Russo and Romero really reinvented that and created something that I think more, or as much as any film of the past 50 years or so, shaped popular culture. I can't think of anything else that has had such a seismic effect on books, on television, on movies, on video games than Night of the Living Dead. It was made for around $115,000, went on to gross in its initial run, I believe, 18 million internationally, so a pretty good return on investment there. It's the blueprint for what would come in terms of, there's not a lot of zombies in Night of the Living Dead. There are a couple of great set pieces involving the zombies, but it's mostly about putting a bunch of people together who wouldn't otherwise be together and figuring out how they're going to survive in a world that is irrevocably changed. It takes place mostly in a farmhouse. It's notable for featuring an African-American protagonist in a time where African-American protagonists were very rare, and not really commenting on that at all throughout the film, which would be another interesting reason to see it at the time it was first shown for that fact. Even though it doesn't have a lot of zombies, it has a few really disturbing things, people gnawing on bones and slabs of meat. It has the first appearance, as far as I know, of the child zombie, which has kind of become a staple in a lot of things, who meets a pretty grisly end in the film, as do all, spoiler alert, the main characters. Night of the Living Dead has a great backstory in terms of its place in the public domain. It was originally called Night of the Flesh Eaters, and they decided before its release to change the title. They did so and changed the title card to Night of the Living Dead, but didn't put a copyright mark back on the title card. So it was immediately in the public domain, which is why there are so many awful copies out there, but a couple of really good ones. And recently it was announced that it will undergo a 4K restoration, so it's soon going to look better than it ever has before, even though it's pretty good looking film for being so low budget. A lot of great Dutch angles, a lot of really dramatic lighting, a lot of good night photography, a lot of things to recommend it on terms of its aesthetic quality, other than the obvious gore. No matter how many times I watch this film and how well I know where it's going to go, and I won't spoil that for people who have not experienced it yet, Night of the Living Dead is one of the more disturbing endings that I can think of in film. And I so want it to end a different way, but somehow it never does. So I hope that if you experience it for the first time in this viewing, that you are equally as disturbed throughout, and especially by that horrible, horrible, ironic ending. And I hope you enjoy Night of the Living Dead.